The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel welcomes you to this edition of the Mayors and Supervisors Weekly Update, brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's version of the Mayors and Supervisors Update. I'm Chris Carosa, publisher of the Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel, and each week we bring you the thoughts and ideas of the mayors and supervisors in the towns and villages we cover. This week we're going to be starting off with Jerry in the town of Rush. Jerry, how are we doing in Rush?
Everything in Rush is peachy keen. We are doing fine, and we are enjoying this extended warm weather. It doesn't do the fall foliage very well, but we're enjoying the temperature and the lack of major temperature swings. My report is short. We had a water meeting, which you've heard me talk about before. We had almost 150 attendees. People who live in Rush and have well water were invited to the meeting. We had that large attendance that I spoke about, and all of us now know what's involved in securing municipal water for everyone who lives in Rush. The next step will be to poll the people with a request saying something like, now that you know what it's going to cost, now that you know what's involved, do you want us to continue to participate? And that has not gone out yet, but it will go out soon. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we had a meet the candidates night last night at the Rush United Methodist Church. And that went very well. And if people who couldn't get there want to see it, you can go on the Rush Recreation and Parks website and get to see the whole thing. The last thing I want to mention is we are going to have a budget review meeting, and that will be on October 21st at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's invited. And if you want to see where your dollars are being spent and how we're managing that process, tune in and hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Mike, town of Lima, how are we there?
Well, things are pretty well here, Chris. Thanks for having us all in today. Livingston County has a new director of emergency management. His name is Andrew Brodell. Andrew has a background as a paramedic, also a flight and tactical paramedic. He's a Colgate grad with a master's in Homeland Security and Emergency Management from Northeastern. And it's going to be great to have him here. It was a little bit of a strain over the summer when the last one left suddenly. So welcome to Andrew. As part of Livingston County's bicentennial celebration, 3-foot trees have been provided to each of the 17 townships. I picked up the 8 3-foot trees this past Wednesday, and they will be installed on public property around the town soon with appropriate signage. November 2nd is Election Day. It is very important that you all get out and vote this year. Once you've selected your candidates, flip your ballot over and look at the propositions and vote on those on the other side. I would encourage all of you to go to the Board of Elections website, the New York State Board of Elections website, and actually read the entire proposition, all of them. What's represented on the back of the ballot does not really give you the entire flavor of all of the changes that the propositions will put through. Consider very carefully the citizens' rights that you may be giving away by voting yes. Then make your choice. And that's all I've got, Chris.
Okay, Mike, very well said. Eileen, the village of Scottsville.
Well, if we're doing, I'm unmuted. We're doing great. Like Jerry said, the weather has been beautiful this week, and so we've enjoyed that. We had our village board of trustees meeting on Tuesday. So one of the main things that we discussed at this meeting was the Historic Preservation Commission, the Code 17025. As you may know, Scottsville has an historic district on Rochester Street. And so we have a historic preservation commission. And this past board meeting, we discussed the code with the chair, Jim Yarrington. One of the things we had done recently, we had two codes for the same thing, 99 and 170-25. So we repealed 99, and then we're looking over 170 to see if there were any changes or corrections or additions that needed to be put in. So Mr. Yarrington was at our meeting, and the board and Mr. Yarrington discussed 170-25 to clarify anything, change anything that needed to be changed, which we did. But I want to talk about one of the main sections that we discussed, and that pertains to clarifying and putting on paper the process of obtaining a permit for any construction within the Rochester Street Historic District. The homeowner needs two things. He needs a certificate of appropriateness plus a building permit. The building permit just covers the New York State Building Code and making sure everything fits in there, whereas the certificate of historic appropriateness says whether that fits in with the building, the surrounding outbuildings should all be within the facade of the era it was built. So the commission is working on the application so that there's a specific application for this certificate, and they're also working on setting the dates and times for their meetings in the coming year. So people will know at the beginning of the year when the meetings will be held and the time. The applications for a certificate of appropriateness can be picked up at the office or through our website. And we are also starting a website, not a website, but an email address for the Historic Commission, and you can email them for an application. And let's see, the DPW has begun leaf pickup in the village. So yard debris in bags will still be collected, but brush, tree limbs, branches, that kind of thing are no longer being collected. They need to be bundled and tied, but you are welcome to bring the brush to the DPW Monday through Friday during their business hours. And finally, this coming week, the pavilion floor at Johnson Park will be worked on. A new epoxy floor will be much easier to clean. One of the things we looked at when we were discussing the ARPA money was that some of it could be used for recreation, plus anything COVID related. And one of the things we decided was that the floor in the pavilion, plus the tables, were difficult to keep clean. The tables were wooden picnic tables. The floor was cement. So we are putting in an epoxy floor in the pavilion, which will be much easier to clean and sanitize. Plus, we are replacing the picnic tables with folding tables and chairs that can be stored and are much easier to clean. Plus, from my point of view, it'll be much easier if any of our seniors are using the pavilion to climb over the bench to get in a picnic table and everything. This way, chairs to pull out, much easier for everybody. So some of the old picnic tables will be used in the outdoor areas in our parks, and the rest will be sold at auction and the money put in the reserves. And that's about it for Scottsville this week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. Sticking with the village milieu, whatever. Rick Milne, not Rick Milieu. Rick Milne, the village of Honeoye Falls. How are we doing there?
Good, Chris. Nice to see everyone today. Really just a couple points to bring up. We have been very active with emergency services as of late. First of all, the new ambulance that we have had on order has delivered. That is in the process of being brought online. And what I mean by that is it has to have all the graphics still put on it. That's usually not done by the manufacturer. And then they have to check it out and get all the ancillary equipment on, et cetera. And that usually takes a week or so. But we're hoping in the next couple of weeks to have our new ambulance online and serving our greater community. So we're excited about that. We've been very active and have had a lot of meetings working on the new Honeoye Falls Fire Department building project. This is, again, a long-term project that there's going to be a lot of community meetings about when we get to that point. But right now, we're still in the design phase for what the building is going to look like and how it's going to be set up, et cetera, to bring that to our residents. But it's just been very active and very time-consuming for a lot of our staff members as well as fire department members. And then really lastly, one of the big items we're working on right now continues to surround emergency services and the Honeoye Falls Mendon ambulance. This has been a real struggle for us over the last few months because we're so busy. We're running so many calls above the norm. So we're really working hard to continue to look at our staffing and support for our local communities. You know, the Honeoye Falls Mendon ambulance, we have a CON, which is Certificate of Need, that covers Honeoye Falls, Mendon, portions of Bloomfield, and then our CON covers Lima as well. And that part of the CON is really for ALS support. But not only is Honeoye Falls Mendon covering a lot higher number of calls in Honeoye Falls and Mendon, but we are getting many mutual aid calls to some of our surrounding communities. And that is really putting a drain on our normal staffing. So along with our call volume for Honeoye Falls Mendon being up, the fact that we're going to a lot of mutual aid calls as well has really started to wear on our staffing, if you will. So we're looking at not only looking at additional staffing, but can we do that, number one? And how do we make sure that the cost of that burden is not put on, you know, our Honeoye Falls and Mendon residents alone, or Bloomfield residents, if you will, when we're going out to a lot of other communities. Emergency services are, you know, there's mutual aid agreements always in place. And if we have an ambulance and a staff sitting in-house and we get toned out to go elsewhere, it's hard not to go. We're going to continue to support our surrounding communities. But again, we want to make sure that we're covering adequately and positively the residents in our own community, obviously, as well. And so we're working hard on that. We're certainly talking with our fellow municipal officials and going through this process. But it's a challenge. You know, we're the only municipally run ambulance in Monroe County now, to the best of my knowledge. I think everyone else are commercial type organizations. And it does become a bit of a struggle for us to manage this. But we have a great chief in place. We have some great volunteers. We have great per diem staff. But that is something that's really taking up a lot of our time and will continue to do so. So we appreciate the efforts of all of our volunteers and all of our per diem staff, both fire and EMS, and we'll always support them. But it is a lot to take on. So that's the main function, main actions for us over the last couple of weeks. And I think that will continue to do so. So that's our focus right now, Chris.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rick. John, town of Mendon, what's happening there?
Chris, thanks for having me as always. We're winding up brush pickup over the next few days. That's town outside the village of out of Honeoye Falls. And as I've mentioned before, you can still bring brush to the highway department during regular business hours. Our budget, we have a public hearing on October 18th for our budget, and that the preliminary budget right now is set for a 10% tax rate cut, which we found that we've been setting money aside, saving money, looking at various ways. We actually have had an uptick in sales tax, things like that. So there's a lot of different components to that change. We're about $600,000 under the tax cap. We continue to set money aside to expand the sidewalks in the hamlet. That is something that we found that a lot of people desire. We'd like to attach more of the sidewalks to the Monroe County Lehigh Valley Trail, so that makes that more accessible to people. And that is something that when we redid our comprehensive plan a year or so ago, it was included in there. The fiscal stress scores for 2020 came out. We're it's 0 to 100. Of course, 100 being the worst. Anything under 40 is considered fine, and we're at 3.3. So we were very happy to hear about that. We also recently purchased speed monitors that we've had up on Quaker Meeting House Road. We've had them on Taylor Road. At this point, we can only put them on town roads, which I know for most people, it's like, okay, what are town roads? But we have county roads, we have state roads, and we have town roads. So right now we can only put them up there. We are looking into ways to get them on state and county roads. And I think we will probably be successful, at least at the county level. That we found specifically with the two that we've had up, and we are able to monitor them and get data that it has, according to the residents, reduced in slower traffic speeds. So that's positive. Unfortunately, we can't have one on every road, but we are going to be moving them around and putting them on various streets, especially that's, one of the things I get complaints about frequently is about speeders. So we will be moving them around throughout the town as we go forward. We also will be advertising shortly for various board openings, zoning board, planning board, conservation board. We do have several openings that will terms that are going to be expiring at the end of 2021, and we'll be advertising for those board positions. We'll be having our Veterans Day lunch, as always, on Thursday, November 11th at the Community Center. That will follow the Legion Post 664, who has their presentation at the Four Corners of Honeoye Falls that day. And if you've never been to that, I would suggest that you attend. It is one of the nicest hometown kind of ceremonies that I think you could possibly attend anywhere. And so I would definitely suggest that people come out and support the Legion and remember all our veterans on Veterans Day. And all veterans are invited to the lunch and their families. There is no residency requirement. Let's see. The last thing I'll mention is that, as mentioned this before, we're moving along nicely with our architect on the Veterans Memorial for the service people that were killed in the helicopter crash back in January. And we're moving along with that. That is, will be located on Semmel Road near the soccer fields. And that's also going to include a spray park. We're hoping to have that open by Memorial Day of 2022. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, John. Anybody remember something that they might have forgotten to say? Seeing none. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for watching. Remember, we are here every Sunday at 1 o'clock on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Chris.
Imagine yourself communicating with a difference. Pan-Dimensional Solutions helps you do this. Whether live spectator events, taped broadcasts, or real-time audience-engaging programs, you can benefit immediately from the tools Pan-Dimensional Solutions will share with you. Do you want to make a difference? Contact us at pandimensional.com.